Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. My name is JDavis, and you know, I speak with Phil Sharkey, Sheriff Sharkey, every week, but we've been doing Sharkey on Santos, the gift that keeps giving. So we may be doing this series for a long time as Congress takes its time to rectify a wrong. Welcome back, Phil.
Thank you, Jeff. And it's true, as we were just talking about, we're going to do a three-part series on this gentleman, and the information just keeps coming in boatloads and boatloads. I can't keep up with all his stories and his transgressions and his claims. So we may have a lot more information on him. Today, Jeff, for your pleasure, I wanted to go through sort of a two-segment wrap-up on him. The first part, which is where I believe if he's going to be removed, if people come to their senses, is his finances and what the House Ethics Committee will do with the financial claims. They'll forget about all the other stuff we surface, like the false education and the employment and the this and the that, and all his claims that he was a star volleyball player at Baruch College, where he graduated from, which he never even attended.
I thought he won the Heisman Trophy.
He was close. He was close. When I get to the claim about Baruch, he did state he was on the volleyball team and was one of their best players. And he's even lied about his height. So he's pathological as far as the line goes. So I think it's the ethics, though. When you get into the finances, which I want to show some stories here, all from credible sources, New York Times articles, CNN articles, etc. And then I'd like to wrap with you with a sort of a top 10 wrap up of his favorite lies, in my opinion. Maybe you can add a few yourselves and see what you prefer. So Jeff, let's get to the finances. First of all, do you know that for his swearing in party, and this is a violation of the House ethics rules, he was selling a tour for between $100 and $500. Donors could get a bus trip to Washington, a lunch, a seat at the swearing in ceremony, and a campaign-led tour of the Capitol grounds. Unfortunately, they found out that there was no seat at the swearing in, and there was the Capitol grounds. So not actually in the area that you see the swearing in, but actually on the grounds, which is a free admission site to anyone who ever been to DC. You could walk the grounds. And they believe this is a violation of ethics, a small one, compared to his other transgressions. But nonetheless, this is the type of guy that we're working with, So that is one issue that shocked me. The other was the eye-popping expenditures that he does. So his campaign sent $11,000 to rent a suburban house in Huntington, Long Island, claiming it was lodging for the staff. This was in the New York Times articles. But neighbors said Santos himself was living there, which is a clear illegal violation. It's illegal for a candidate to spend campaign funds on your own personal residences. So,
right.
Jeff, he was constantly fueling money into his campaign, living there when he was claiming it was a residence for his staffing.
Very clearly, he crossed a boundary. He went from professional to personal.
Yes. And when we get into these finances, it's quite amazing that he spent $11,000 on rent on a house he lived in, $40,000 on air, $30,000 on hotels, $14,000 on cars, and they had 39 expenditures for $199.99, and $200 is the legal threshold, as they know, for when you have to start showing receipts for your expenditures. So again, Jeff, this is a guy who knows exactly what he's doing, or his campaign knows what they're doing. When you do 39, now he knows what he's doing, but I would argue to you that he's an idiot, because mix it up a little bit, right? Have a charge for 187, 150, 175, 39 charges for 199.99 when the threshold is $200. It's just amazingly nuts to me, as far as when you look into someone and what they're up to, what they're doing. It's just shocking to me. They talked about putting in something called the Santos Act. This was from a Republican. Representative Richie Torres, a Democrat out of the Bronx, and would introduce that legislation which would require a candidate for federal office to disclose their employment, education, military history under oath. False statements would be then punishable by perjury. That might be a nice way to go with this gentleman. Let's talk about campaigns. He went from, in 2020, being evicted for failure to pay rent, to in 2022 loaning his campaign $700,000. Now, here's where the ethics committee is going to jump into there.
He should be teaching at a business school.
I know, I'm running my pre-employment screening firm here. I'd like to find that influx of money. So somehow he went from claiming a salary of $50,000 per year in 2020 to in 2022, he lent his campaign $700,000. And he claimed an income then of $750,000 for that calendar year. So how he went financially from being extremely poor, someone who was evicted twice in the last 2 years, in 2020 and 2019, to having that amount of money to lend his campaign is quite shocking, to say the least. They talked about he has relations to possibly a Russian oligarch has donated a huge amount of money to his campaign. His finances are just, I could go on and on to you about his character and what he's done. In 2008, when he was back in Brazil, he was arrested and charged with stealing a man's checkbook that was in his mother's possession to purchase clothing and shoes. This was an admission that came in court documents. In 2010, the police had suspended the investigation into Santos at that time because they could not find him. He had fled to the United States, and they couldn't find him to continue with the investigation. All over the articles I have, if you trace back, there's so many cases of him as being fraud and stealing from people. People are lining up in Brazil in great length to show history with him. Now, I don't know if they're all true claims, but there's an unbelievable amount of claims of fraud and expenditures, stealing from people, flat out stealing. CNN confirmed a report in the New York Times that he was charged with embezzlement in a Brazilian court in 2011. More cases of that. He has a business called the Boulder Organization, and this was a business which in Florida, this is just an article posted on Monday from the Florida Sentinel, and they moved their offices, this is his business, their headquarters from a penthouse in Merritt Island to a mail service store in Melbourne, because people are looking into the company. There appears to be great claims that this is a fictitious company. The financial disclosure reports that he filed in September 22 claimed he had assets worth $2.5 million, all through this DeVolder Corporation, which is a name he's used as well. It's very shocking that, again, he went from no money 2 years ago to having a huge amount of influences and wealth. And I think, Jeff, that's where the ethics committee is really going to go after him, is where this money came from and how he got it. And again, the false claims on what he was doing for his political run is how he's using the money, which appears to be he was using it for himself. Nonstop.
Well, clearly this is a very talented person. As I said, could be teaching a finance course of how do you do the shell game. And, I'm sure there are some voters who think he's so good at making money, he could do that for us.
That's what, and he's even admitted in a lot of these articles the brazenness where he comes out and he'll actually be boldened by his claims and say, they asked him about the $700,000, and he point blank said to the interviewer that, well, I can tell you where it didn't come from. It didn't come from Russia and China. So he refuses to answer, like most politicians, and throws it right back as to not answering the question, of course, but just being very defiant and difficult to get the truth from. That's for sure.
Well, again, there's a lot of fake news out there. I'm wondering, did you get a chance to take a look at the claim that he had taken money from an oligarch?
Yeah, it's a legitimate claim. It was from the New York Times article, and they traced the money line and went right from the Russian oligarch into his account. So there's again, you have to be careful on these claims, but this is a very strong statement, and they're going to be looking into that as well with the ethics committee. Well,
do you have any sense of how you think this is all going to end?
I do. I still do have hope in our country. I know that I get pushback from my friends where, well, all politicians lie, do the fact check after a speech. And again, there's things about claims compared to your history, who you are, the fabric of who you are. As people look into this person, nothing is accurate. Nothing is truthful, as we did in our earlier segments, from education to employment to his mother's, to his Jewish heritage, to the claims that she died. And, the statements are so barbaric, died in 9/11, where they now proved she wasn't even in the country. So there could be he said she was in the 7th floor office and later passed away from cancer. Who does these type of things, Jeff? I mean, who makes such a statement like that? It's
no one I want to be associating with. So where is our Sharkey top 10 Santos stories.
Well, I'm glad you asked that, my friend. So these would be, I would see my top. Actually, there's so many. I got to go to top 11 Santos lies, and then I'll ask you what your favorite one is. So here we go. So my number one is that his grandparents survived the Holocaust. As he stated in an interview, I'm very proud of my grandparents' story. And he claimed they fled Hitler and they survived, and that's why he is proud of them. Of course, none of that was true. His family has no connection to being Jewish at all, which he later amended to saying he was Jewish. As we just spoke about, my number two is his mother died as a result of 9/11. His campaign website claimed that his mother was in her office in the South Tower on that terrible September 11th day, adding that she passed away a few years later when she lost her battle to cancer. Unfortunately for his side and the truth, his mother was proven to be not in the country at that time. So again, someone who would say such a thing, unbelievable. My personal favorite, Jeff, number three, that he was a volleyball star. So we know he lied about graduating from Baruch College, but he went on to say this in a 2020 radio interview, and these are his quotes. He attended Baruch on a volleyball scholarship. He was part of a team that slayed Yale and Harvard, so he's getting going now. He could have played basketball, but he chose volleyball because he thought it was easier. And he has since sacrificed both knees as he got very nice knee replacements from playing volleyball because that's how seriously he took the game. So not just a volleyball player, but a gung-ho.
Well, he also talks about specific wins that he's had that are quite memorable for him.
He also claimed that he was the smallest guy on the team, yet he was still 6 feet 2 inches tall, which he's not. If anyone has seen him, that's a giant of a person. He's not. Again, just lying away. So number four, we'll go quickly. That would be the Ponzi scheme that we invented. The one job that he did work for, a company called Harbor City, with the Securities and Exchange Commission has accused of running Ponzi schemes there, and he was their top employee. Number five would be alleged crimes committed in Brazil in 2008. We touched about how he stole someone's checkbook. A man his mother was working for, and he spent nearly $700 using stolen checks in a fake name. And then he moved to the United States to disappear. Number seven, Jeff, we have, this is a good one. He was mugged on his way to delivering his rent check. As I mentioned earlier, that he defaulted on his rent, but he claimed in a sworn statement that he was mugged while attempting to deliver the check for back owed rent to his Queens landlord. Shockingly, there's no record of this ever happening. My number eight would be all those charges for $199.99. Again, there was 37 different campaign expenditures, all for $199.99, which is 1 cent below the threshold, which the FEC requires campaigns to keep receipts. Number nine, sir, we got, these are not nice stories. This is bilking a homeless veteran out of money raised to save his dying dog.
Right.
The Patch reported in 2016, he was going by the last name DeValder, and he connected with a homeless veteran whose service dog had developed a life-threatening tumor and needed surgery that cost $3,000. Santos swooped in to help out, raised the funds, and then he allegedly disappeared with the money, and the dog died in January 2017. The veteran homeless never saw a penny of the money that was raised. Number 10 is another horrific thing, the Pulse shooting in Florida, where he claimed that he lost 4 employees in the 2016 Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando. But it doesn't surprise you to show that upon researching that none of his workers ever were involved in that situation. And I said my number one would be the Kevin McCarthy impersonation. Earlier this past month, one of his reported that his staffer workers for him would call rich donors and pretend to be Representative Kevin McCarthy's chief of staff to raise money. This is something they're looking into right now, so one of our breaking stories. And that is my top 11 of his most recent lies for you.
And we didn't even get to taking his roommate's scarf.
No, we didn't. That was, would that be your addition? That was something his roommate was not very happy about. So,
well, especially his roommate's looking at it on TV as he's talking about it. That was quite humorous.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, it's tough to trim it down into our podcast, but it appears to be everything he says has some question to the truth.
I'll take the silliest and the saddest. The silliest is clearly, and number one, the volleyball story, where he continues to embellish the story with particular games that they took down different schools and how proud he was. And I think he just continues to pound away on that volleyball story. And he must have been quite, he must have been a big jumper for 6'2".
Yeah. Or maybe he stood on his tippy toes. I'm not sure, but you're right. He sort of gets rolling, and then he just really keeps going with the story, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. And the saddest story, since I sadly grew up in a community with many of my friends' parents who would sit at the dinner table with me with numbers on their arms out of concentration camps, is the sadness that he would make light of such a horrific story as the Holocaust, and make light of the people who have suffered through this and suffer through it even generations later. So he's clearly a horrible person, and let's see how long it takes the Republicans to extricate this person from their party. And I expect this 3-part series to keep going until we get to the end of the story.
I agree, and we're on it for you. I can't. I'm invested now, so I take it personally. Again, hopefully, as a country, like you said, that last example, Jeff, it's so diabolically horrible that we just can't stand for it. I understand that we get the pushback and people tell political fibs and stretch the truth, but this is a bad guy, and there's no reason for him to be representing us, voting for laws and for wars and representing our country. It's horrific, really.
On the other hand, since I have a warped sense of humor, if I wanted to go listen to anybody speak right now, it might be him, because I would just want to hear what comes out of his mouth.
You got that right. It would be entertaining. I would
He
say
should
that.
be the host of Saturday Night Live next week.
Should be entertaining. Absolutely. I agree with that.
And Phil, let's not forget our entrepreneurs who constantly, and statistics will show, only hire the right people, maybe 30% of the time. Most resumes are falsified, and need someone like you, very valuable asset, to screen people properly before they do their hires. How do people find you, Phil?
Yeah, Jeff, we're right here at www.hireauth.com. That's HIREAUTH.com. Call anytime at 508-230-5901 or toll free at 888-230-5901. And my goal is to keep someone like this out of your company, where it would cause you great harm to your branding, to your operations, possibly to your business. You can do better.
And to your workforce, your labor force, you don't want any problems. So don't forget, everybody, check out Sheriff Sharkey. We do on Radio Entrepreneurs.